And then what we've also seen, I think in a very broad sense from this meeting, is that the ball is very much in the industrialized countries' court now. When you look at the international community, it's pretty clear from earlier this week that we saw some real commitments from developing countries. We saw Brazil come out with a commitment, China come out with a commitment, and we didn't see that kind of response from the leaders of the industrialized countries at this meeting. We didn't see an announcement on climate finance. We didn't see a promise that finance to help the poorest countries deal with the impacts of climate change would not take away from the money that they need to deal with poverty alleviation. Those are the kinds of things we were expecting to see, and there wasn't agreement around these things. And so just to put this in the context, we heard the president speak a lot about the economic crisis and coming out of that. I mean, the analogy with the economic crisis here and climate change to me is really fundamentally about the fact that there are a few people, not very many, at the beginning of the economic crisis who knew what was about to happen, who understood that it was not good that we were putting out all these mortgages and loans without a lot of information, and knew that there needed to be additional regulation, but people didn't listen to them, and the financial systems crashed. And what we have in the U.S. right now is a small group of people, a relatively small group of people, largely in the NGO community, who really, truly understand the costs of inaction on climate change, who really understand what it is that's going to happen. We have a broad mass of support in the public who want action on this, but a small group of people who really understand how expensive this will be if we don't act. And we are trying to amplify that call, so we're not in the same situation as we were with the financial crisis, and so we do address this before it gets too late. And one of the aspects of addressing that is identifying the finance that we need globally to start a clean energy economy. So that means money that goes to renewable energy, money that goes to energy efficiency, money that goes to protecting forests, money that goes for protecting the vulnerable communities out there that are already really suffering from the impacts of climate change today. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for some public investment into in order to leverage a much larger amount of private investment. And that money needs to be, identified before we get to the UN Climate Summit in Copenhagen. And there were meant to be steps of progress towards that at this meeting, and they didn't materialize. And so again, as I said before, there's a lot of pressure now on the next G20 meeting.
As Kaya said, I think this has been a disappointment in terms of the outcomes from the summit. There was hope that on several fronts that there might be real progress. I think the most important one would have been on the scale of financing, the level of resources that are needed by developing countries to be able to, and there is the president. I don't know, who has the volume?
So it's clear that it's clear to Greenpeace and most other observers of the Copenhagen process that a fair and ambitious finance package is critical to getting a deal done. This is progress on that piece of it was expected to happen here. Back in when the Major Economies Forum met in July in L'Aquila, they had tasked the finance ministers to make progress, come up with proposals, and address them here. That didn't happen. And actually, I had a quick glance at the leader's statement that was just distributed probably about a half an hour ago, and they actually, more or less word for word, repeated what they said in L'Aquila, where they tasked the finance ministers to come back at the next meeting, which will be in Scotland, and report back on potential proposals. So essentially, they kicked the can down the road.